priest. Doesn't mean we're talking about all Catholic priests, but don't look now. A lot of priests have a relationship with a woman. Now, you don't. It's okay to chuckle. God has a sense of humor. What is not so funny is that this can be a very pressure-packed relationship. I mean, do you tell the parishioners? What if the parishioners find out? What if the bishop finds out? And how do you see her? And are you reduced to guilt and no luggage and all those terrible things from all that old theology? Here's Tom and Jan Bice Allen. Tom was forced to become an inactive priest when you were married last January. We're not surprised. You married Jan last September. You actually lived together in the priest house.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, now, wait a minute. And you, incidentally, you look happily married. I'm not going to worry about you. When you get to heaven, look for me.
You'll be there.
It may take you a while, but if you keep looking. You went on his rounds and did things, and you were like the assistant, not unlike a lot of priests had. As in my own childhood days, there was the woman who took care of the rectory.
Yeah, I took care of the rector. I was also the social work administrator. I did a lot of things in the parish.
And you went with him, like, to the, did you go to the church picnic with him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did all of those things.
Did you have bingo?
Well,
No.
No.
oh,
What?
we did too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But you did go to what we would, and
Wedding
didn't
suppers,
people
all
say,
kinds of things,
ahem?
too.
What about all the yentas? You know, Catholics have yentas, you know. Somebody had to.
Somebody translate Yenta for me.
Well,
I'm from the Midwest.
Wait a minute. You want to know what it means? Hold on. What's it? I asked where the Jews were before the show, which is why means the gossip.
Yenta is a gossiper or a busybody that always wants to get into your business
Oh,
and
there
find
were
it.
none of those in our parish. Absolutely not.
There were those in our
few, yeah.
parish. Yes, there were. Of course, we had, we had to contend with that. But basically, overall, the parish was quite positive. Of course, there was a lot of ignoring of what was who I was and so on.
Yeah.
I guess one of the nicest compliments that I had in the parish is from one of those dissenters or yentas was that I never did look like a housekeeper. So
That is a compliment.
Yeah,
In the
I
meanwhile,
consider that.
too, they gave me another parish. When they ran out of priests, I was asked to take an additional parish on.
And you went, and she went with you?
Well,
Oh, you
we
had two
stayed there,
parishes.
but commuted to the
I
second
see.
parish.
I see. Now, how long did this relationship continue in the covertly?
We were living together in the parish house for 6 years. We came as pastor and housekeeper. Our relationship grew into a marital one, and we got married.
What's the matter?
I'm floored.
Why?
Why? That's a priest. He took vows.
I'm just wondering if anybody can explain how and why the concept of celibacy in the priesthood originated.
The apostles? Jesus?
No, certainly not.
No, go ahead.
Huh? Hang on a minute. We got theologians, too, here. I'll tell you, we never come out here alone. What is it?
I'm not
Now,
sure.
don't goof this up. This is about doctrine, so get it straight.
I think in the New Testament, one of the letters of Paul says that overseers should be married men and fathers of children.
Oh, you're arguing for celibacy as an optional thing.
I think Paul said it would be better to be celibate, but in another one of the Gospels or letters,
Yeah.
one of the apostles says that overseers of congregations should be married men and fathers.
All right.
In his letter to Timothy
Oh, hold on. In his letter, what?
To Timothy and Titus, he gives the requirements for a bishop that they should be married to one woman.
We should say that you are Kathy Grenier,
Yes, that's right.
and your beloved and devoted husband Joseph sits by your side. You're a former nun, and you are an inactive priest.
All right.
Uh-huh. All right. I don't know what you're doing in the audience and not on the stage, but thank you for... They'll never accuse you of one of the 7 deadly sins, vanity or pride. Okay, so you're happy now, and do you feel better now that it's open? Did you get up in the pulpit and say, this is it, I'm going to marry this woman, or how'd this work?
Last August, I did precisely that and explained my reasons because I really felt that the law of celibacy was not only not so hot for me, but it was really damaging the church and the numbers and the quality of priests that were available to serve in the church.
Yeah. You're late.
Yes, I am. I'm in the middle. Half of the priests under the age of 60 are already married. So I'm around 50 percentile.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for 25 years.
Yeah. You didn't feel at all guilty going in with the...
No, I actually never did feel guilty. I was, when you love somebody, I don't know where the guilt would come in on that. I loved him, and
How'd you meet?
How did we
Was
meet?
this-
We
met
met
at
in
a
church, of course.
Right.
Yeah. And you were doing what at the time?
Actually, we had met a couple years after I was divorced, and I was just there at church with my daughter, and...
Uh-oh. Now she's divorced. Yeah, see?
How else would
Thought
I
this
get
was going to be
grandchildren?
boring, didn't you? You have no children by your first marriage.
Yes, I do. I have
do.
a boy and a girl, and I have 2 grandchildren.
Now, do they reside with their father, or did they...
No, they're both married.
Oh, they're grown.
They're grown, and I have 2 grandchildren besides.
So you didn't have any, what we would say, daily maternal responsibilities when you were living at the rectory?
No.
But 2 grandchildren were born during that time, and we helped
Yes, we
and
know.
enjoyed it.
Right, which is nothing wrong with, that's not against doctrine
No.
to help
I
with.
guess that's not.
Okay. Mary Ann joins us, not her real name. We understand you're interested in not necessarily, you know, you've got the funny glasses on and everything, but
great.
thanks for being here. We mean that. Thank you. Here's the story. It says here you had, as in past tense, a long-term relationship with a priest. You're the other woman in the, you're the woman in the priest's life, only you did it, you obviously didn't have the convenience of this arrangement. True.
Yes, I didn't have the convenience, but we worked together on a lot of weekend functions and that kind of thing, so there was plenty of opportunity to travel together and be together that way, but it wasn't a living arrangement.
Right.
No.
Now, how would you see him in the town in which his parish was located?
How would I see
Yeah,
him?
I mean,
After hours.
After hours.
Yeah.
You went to his place.
No, he came over. He was pretty much, I have 4 children. He was pretty much a part of my family. It was very much like a spouse relationship. We were very much married. He went off to work. He did his job. He came home at night to me. Fortunately, he didn't get to spend the night because, you know, the children, it would be difficult to explain to my older children.
So
why.
in a way, then, you had to almost act like high school kids, didn't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we were forced to do. It's the hidden thing, you know. You sneak out of town together and behave like children, but we have no choice.
Yes. You look in very good physical and emotional condition to me, but our notes say that this has been very, very difficult on both of you. And do I understand that he's been hospitalized for...
He's institutionalized. He was, I should say that we have a child together. I had a miscarriage to our first child. I miscarried, and we have a 1-year-old.
Which has likewise been born
Yes.
without the knowledge of the parishioners.
Right. Since then, things are becoming pretty open. He was sent away. He was sent away, and he broke down. I broke down as a result of it. It was very rough. I have a child that the church won't let the father acknowledge. He can't see me. He can't see his child.
Have you gone before the Purple Tribunal and said, here we are, we love each other, what's wrong with...
I went as far as I could go with it, yes, and protested.
And?
They say if you want to continue to be a priest, you give up your child and you don't see this woman.
And is he then now, and what, has he made the choice to stay?
He wants to be a priest. He's a good priest. He has all the right in the world to continue what he's doing. He's doing God's work and he's doing it well. And I support him in it.
Uh-huh. And he's not prepared to sever his relationship with the church?
Not at this moment, no.
He's seen his baby.
He's seen his baby. He loves this baby. He loves me. He happens to love the church more.
But how long can you live a double life like this? This sounds kind of...
Well, we lived it for 5 years.
Is your love still mutual? It said had a relationship. That's why I'm asking. Do you consider this relationship alive?
Let's just say we've made choices in our life to go different directions because we have no other options.
Uh-huh.
You're
This
forced,
sounds
aren't
like
you?
a great morality play, which is not at all, I'm sure, even a little humorous for those who are living it.
It's not human. It's hell, and it's not. I'm sorry, but it is.
I'm sure it is.
If you love a man and he wants to serve God, then I don't see what's wrong with it. Why can't he serve God and love a woman too?
Exactly.
Exactly. Right.
Marianne, just give me a second here to talk with Mike Miles. You actually got in the pulpit. Where's the book? Here, hold on to this just a second. This is something, boy. Montana, you don't mind? It's in your book.
No,
Bozeman?
Bozeman.
Resurrection Parish. You got up and you said, at the pulpit, I paused in the sermon, the stillness was leaden, you say. There would be no turning back. The years of waiting, of searching now pushed me to the edge. Again, my voice seemed distant, and here is what you said. Sometimes we must quit hiding our own lamp, take a chance that others will look kindly on its light. So, and then you acknowledge that you stammered. Something, I want to share something personal, something which has been and is the light for me. I'm going to get married. They stared at him. Nobody in the church breathed. And then you tell us you kept going, and you said, you see, it won't be necessary for me to leave here. We'll be married in the parish. I'll be able to remain as your priest if you want me. And then you corrected yourself, if you want us. I'm in love with Joan Doyle. Many of you know her. The wedding is here in the parish. And then you were interrupted by, it began in the back of the church. They stood up and applauded. True?
True. Just hearing you read those words, no one's ever read those words to me. I wrote them, brings that feeling back. It's strange.
You had to go behind the altar then to weep at this moment, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I wish Joan were here to share with me. My wife can't be here. But, and I hear these stories, and I feel how fortunate I was, because our story was a happy story in so many ways. And the Sunday I had been in love for 3 years. I had lived a celibate life, and during that love, lived the celibate life. People knew Joan and I were close, but I did not want to leave the priesthood, and I couldn't give up the woman I loved, and I remember that day. And after I said, I'm going to marry, but we are going to remain, I'm going to continue to serve you if you'll have us. And then I said, I'm marrying Joan, and that was at 4 Masses, Phil. I had 4 Masses that Sunday. At every single Mass, they stood and applauded. And the first Mass, the tears got in my eyes, and I just couldn't go on for a while.
Right. Now, how long did you serve then as a priest in this parish, openly married?
5 years.
This parish, it should be said, was under the aegis of Bishop Raymond Hunthausen, who was to be later transferred to Seattle. Is that right?
Later transferred, that's correct.
And we know Bishop Hunthausen as a man who's had his own problems with the Vatican because of his, what would be described very simply as liberal views regarding moral issues. So you were cool with, as long as Raymond Dutch Hunthausen, as he was known, was your prelate. He moves to Seattle, he's transferred, and the new guy calls you in. Is that so?
Well, in a sense. I think one of the things that's important is that when we began this event, it was a different time in the church. It was right after the Second Vatican Council. It was into the 70s. It was a time of real hope. It was a different time than now.
Yeah.
And we didn't start off with any notion of an experiment or anything else. We saw ourselves very much within the law of the church. That's why I wrote a book. It's not that simple, I guess.
I'm sure it isn't.
And
but in any event, the replacement called you in and said, you got to stop. You can't do this.
True.
And so you had to leave the parish. You now are the proud parents of 3 children. Is that so?
Yes, one of our daughters was born when I was still in the parish.
Let me get this caller. Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
Yes, I am. My name is Carmela, and I'm listening to these wishy-washy stories. These priests really should be ashamed of themselves. Being Catholic, they know the full repercussions of what they do. They know that for every sin that's committed on earth, people suffer.
Yeah.
And yet they continue in this lifestyle. Yeah. They thought that Jesus hung on the cross for the fun of it. Did they think that his suffering was for them so that they could just do what they want to do?
Well, what should we do with them?
Well, I think they should leave the church. If they can't abide by the laws, they should leave.
Talk to her? No. Yeah. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. We got.
I don't think that, where is she? Love is not a sin. And that's how I feel about it. I think that if you love someone, God will approve of that.
I don't think Jesus died in order to wipe out sexuality.
Yeah. You do represent, however, those that segment of the faithful that obviously bring considerable pressure on all of you who found yourself in this very real situation.
But Phil, the pressure goes both ways. These same people are losing pastors in large numbers. Huh? Half of the priests under the age of 60 are gone. They can't serve anymore.
Yeah.
And people in parishes are hurting. They don't have leadership.
Yeah. Hi, go ahead. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
I am a woman who had an affair with a priest, and I think that the role or the part, the pain that a woman feels after an affair is something that really needs to be looked at. The man that I was involved with him for about 8 months. I worked in the church. And the relationship started after I had worked there for about 2 years.
Yes.
And when the parish or the rector of the parish got wind, so to speak, of the affair, the priest immediately called me and ended it.
And so you're left then with your pain. How long did the relationship last?
About 8 months. It was 8 months.
Mm-hmm. And when you haven't seen him since?
Well, he is still in the church. He's still at the church where I had worshiped, so I do see him occasionally. It's only recently that I've been able to go anywhere near the church, that I've been able to take part in the services.
Let me get you some, did you want to say something?
I wanted to say something. What she's right is people don't realize the pain of what happens to the women or the men after relationships like this. And that's what I need to say. You know, I get phone calls from several women in these relationships. And the choices that they make are not choices that they want to make, but because of the pressure of the relationship and what society would do. I mean, I get calls of women that abort their children because they're pregnant with this child of a priest.
Can't handle the scandal.
And the priest says, I can't have a child. I'm a priest. And the woman says, well, what am I going to do? So she goes out and she aborts the child. There's women in institutions. A good friend of mine that was involved with a priest took an overdose of medication. People are out there, they're either killing themselves or their children. And that's what, you know, something's got to change.
I think everyone's losing perspective of the question. Celibacy is a vow. And a vow, just like a vow when you're married, is to be forever. Right. Not just when it's a convenience for you.
Right. So what should we do here?
Yeah.
Well, you're sitting here, let them know how you feel. Let them know how you feel. That's what we're
I
here.
have really only one question, and it doesn't have to do with celibacy. It has to do with commandments. Are we in agreement that Christ or God gave us the 10 Commandments?
Yes.
And if we do agree with that, the 6th commandment would be in total opposition to the 6 years that you two lived together. I don't have a question about the celibacy because that's a rule that can or cannot be changed by the church. But the commandments that God gave you were, you shall not commit adultery. I'm sure that there are many people who can...
Would it be adultery?
Well, I don't know. It has to...
If you don't know, you shouldn't be throwing stones at these.
No, I'm asking. I was not really asking. I went to a Catholic school, and there are many interpretations and many definitions of adultery. If extramarital activity is part of it, or premarital activity is part of it, then I would say that you were wrong in breaking
what should they
that
do?
command.
What should they do?
What do we all do?
What should they do? I mean, how do you argue with, look at this good-looking couple here and here's children, he's got 3 kids?
No, but he did not.
Yes, may I come in on that?
He did not.
One of the things she just pointed to me and said I did not. I cannot speak, of course, for anyone else. But one of the things that in our situation, I was in love for 3 years and lived a celibate life and struggled with that and felt very much that I had to live that life.
Right.
As we finally received permission to marry, and I was dispensed and allowed to marry, one of the things that we saw ourselves doing is very much, we didn't see ourselves in any sense outside any law, and in fact within the law. And I think it's important, in our case at least, it was like walking through a dark room and trying to feel your way through. Yeah. Not considering yourself a rebel, but knowing that the first thing for me was not sex or any of that. The first thing was the priesthood of Jesus Christ and how to preserve it. Right. Then falling in love and how not losing that love. Right. And in our case, after staying in the parish for 5 years, we saw ourselves within the law of the church.
So you had a community somewhere in Middle America that actually respected, in Bozeman, Montana, a community of faithful that respected their parish priest whom they knew was married, and they even knew you.
But the point is, we were openly married.
That's what I'm saying.
And they knew we were openly married, and when the bishop saw himself very much within the law of the church, because I had some limitations on me, but the limitations in fact didn't change how the people perceive me.
Sure,
but
Phil,
the marriage was open. And
in our case, we moved through the normal process of knowing each other, a growing relationship, an engagement. Yeah. We did it privately because the minute that would have been said publicly that our relationship was growing, I'd have been fired. We weren't ready to be fired at that point. And we had work to do in the parish, and we had a lot of our own life journey to handle.
Okay. Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
So we got married.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
I feel that it's a great idea for these priests to get married. Why should they be celibate? We all get married. I'm a Catholic, and that's the one thing about being a Catholic that upsets me. I feel sorry for these priests, and I feel that a priest who's married and who shepherds his flock is more likely to understand the problems of married people and families if he's been married or if he has children of his own. And
hang on just 1 second.
I agree that it is a vow, that a vow should be kept, but I think that the vow should be revised, that to get into priesthood should be a different way to get in, or the vow should be different.
Well, the only way, how about optional? If you want to be a celibate priest, then we have communities of celibate priests. If you don't, you don't have to.
But I don't see how you can, okay. You can be totally devoted to God and be married at the same time.
I think so, too.
I don't think that it's something that should be totally separate. And
these folks, thank you for your support. Thank you very much. Let me give you a chance. I must break here. I do thank you for calling. We might speculate as to how many priests might be struggling under the weight of these very real life dramas, especially in view of the fact that so many have already left. What's the route for Holy Mother Church during the rest of this century? No small question for a worldwide institution that now finds itself in a crisis of its own priests. There are not enough priests to get the work of the church done. Now what? We'll be back in just a moment. Lambert Van Gelder joins us with Maria Strohoff. You're an active priest, and they live together. They have been living together for 10 years. Guess what else? You live and you practice your priesthood in the Netherlands.
Yes. That's right.
Very liberal, very,
It's called.
You're giving the church a lot of troubles.
It's called.
You actually have a house, do you, with 2 doors?
That's right.
You have, what are you shaking?
No, it's 2 houses under 1 roof. That's correct.
But you have 2 front doors.
We have 2 front doors. I'm the owner of the house, and he's my tenant, you say?
I have to pay for it.
You know, in this day and age, with all the disease and everything out there, maybe celibacy isn't such a bad thing, and maybe we should all just play bingo.
May I answer that? May I answer that, please?
What is it?
May I answer that?
Sure you can.
I think celibacy is not a bad thing for people who think that's their way to come to create the image of God into this world. But it's not the way of everyone.
And what is the status of your ministry with the superior to whom you report? Does he know you're married?
We're not married.
We are not married.
Oh, you're not married.
We are living next to each other. We are living next to each other.
Very good neighbors.
You live next to each other. Now wait a minute. Now wait a minute. Here's what, let me tell you what I understand, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
You have two front doors, one roof. Oh, it looks like what would you call it? Duplex.
Duplex.
Side by side. You go in the one door and there's no walls in there. This is one house in there.
Oh, no, I go in and there's a stair going upstairs from my part of the house.
So you don't make a big thing of it, is that it? You have not tried to challenge orthodoxy then with your own domestic situation?
Why should we?
You're in love, you acknowledge that.
Sure, I am.
And you live in an intimate monogamous relationship. Well, we see, this is the Donahue show. We got to get all the information here. So tell us then, and what's your point? You've heard all this here. What's your position?
My position is I don't want to leave the church as a priest and to stay and remain a priest because it's my conviction that only in the church, within the church, it's possible to change something. If I'm going to the superiors and say I like to be married, and then they say, okay, you can go out and you are away, and you can tell nothing. But remaining in the church, you have the chance, I hope, and I'm working for it, to change something. For example, the law of celibacy.
But how are you going to change it if you're not doing anything political about it? You're merely...
No, I'm active in it.
You are?
I am in the International Federation of Married Priests and so on and so on.
Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a seminarian in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And it is my contention, and what I have been taught to believe, that breaking that sacred vow of celibacy is a more serious infraction against God than is simply leaving the priesthood.
Really?
I would just like to know what the feelings of the gentlemen on the board are about this, because
how old are you, may I
I'm
ask?
alarmed at their actions, quite frankly.
How old are you?
I am 19.
And how long have you been in the seminary?
Well, I've just started. It's only 2 years, but...
What's the name of the seminary?
St. John's in Brighton.
And you think it's a greater sin to break the vow of celibacy than it is to leave the priesthood?
Yes, but that's not simply my contention. That's the contention of the church. That's what I've been taught.
You want in here, Kathy? Tell them how
I sure do.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want a reaction to this so-called vow of celibacy. A religious takes a vow of celibacy. Your Jesuits, your Franciscans, those are religious orders. They take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. That chastity includes celibacy. A secular priest makes a vow of obedience to his bishop. Okay, a vow of obedience then includes obeying the traditions of the church, the man-made laws of the church. We're not talking about a vow of celibacy for every priest here.
No, I know you're not.
Okay, and there is a fine line there.
The rules of the game have changed. Not so long ago, the church officially taught that celibacy was superior to marriage. You got a higher spot in heaven. That was what was taught in the seminary in my day 20 years ago. All right? That has changed. We now see celibacy as no greater than the married state, no less than.
But I notice in Mike's book, and I notice in a lot of the stories that have to do with the agonies that you all sustained, and I don't mean to suggest that I'm above them, don't understand or empathize with them, but there is a kind of dependence that runs through all of these dramas, these biographies. Please let me make my point. People who are involved in your very real situation that, in my opinion, obliges no feelings of guilt, but is the way it is. You didn't ask for it, it happened. We see a lot of adult people running around looking for permission to make this right and changing and looking at the fine print of the doctrinal...
If a man goes in at 14 years of age and he says, I've got a vocation to the priesthood, they slap him on the back and say, come on, boy, yes, you do. You got the Holy Spirit. Right. If he goes in at 50 and says, I think I don't have a vocation to the priesthood, you're under delusion. The same man they trained.
But see, I would hope that between 14 and 50, this wonderful child of God would have matured to be able to make independent decisions of himself.
But he's been treated as though he has not matured, and that the Holy Father Church will make all of those decisions for him.
Phil,
if what you say is right, why isn't it?
Sure, go ahead. One of the things that I've been in discussions on celibacy, okay, briefly, one thing that's not being heard here is where the people are, the people in the parishes and in the community. And the value of our experience was not the question of celibacy, but rather how does being married enhance the priesthood? Because for me, it was the question of the priesthood. And I know that being married and being in counseling, and the people reaffirmed the priesthood for me. And we weren't out on some big radical
Everybody
trip.
says that.
Well,
Everybody says that, Mike.
Not everybody has that experience. We had the experience in a parish of being married and functioning openly, and I guess the point I'm making is the issue here is how do you serve people best, and what do the people want?
When the Catholics in the 50s wanted to use the pill, they found a liberal Monsignor to give them permission for it. The joke was that Catholics took the pill for arthritis. We always looked for some way to get around this law that was written by old men on hard wooden benches. Now you've done the same thing.
Not really.
You look for Schillebeck's. You go through Hans Kung, what does he say? It's like little children looking for permission to behave in a human way. To me, what's destructive is the way the church is juvenilized, not all, but many of its faithful.
Well, that's
Amen.
the tragedy.
What we need is an honorable discharge if we want to get married. If the church wants to, but if the church is foolish enough to keep
why would you give the
celibacy,
church the power to decide whether you're honorably discharged?
Well, simply because there are punitive laws still on the books that carry, and I would like to remain a Catholic, but I cannot remain in good standing, okay? Now, that's tantamount to getting fired out of the service and being stripped of your citizenship.
Phil, there's...
I've got a break.
Okay.
You'll forgive me. I'm sorry.
All right.
We'll give you a chance in just a moment. As more and more priests leave the church, it has also come to the attention not a few journalists and other people who are often faithful Catholics, that there are dramas playing themselves out in the lives of some of the priests who remain. Relationships that may be intimate, may be heterosexual, may be homosexual, but they are in fact relationships, and we're talking about several heterosexual relationships right here, including at least 2 couples who've married. Are you there, caller? I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a young married Catholic woman, and I really feel that a lot of the blame here goes to the women involved in these relationships. I think any woman who goes into a relationship like this, it's almost like looking for a relationship with a married man. And I feel priests are human beings. They have to deal with the problems of celibacy. And to have women constantly after them, which I see all the time, I've seen all my life in parish life.
What did she say?
I resent that remark. I didn't go after a priest. Just like that other person is talking, like the caller is talking, is she married? Has she ever fallen in love? We fall in love. I didn't go pick Tom out and say, I'm going to fall in love with this priest.
Well, falling in love is one thing, but to continue and to keep trying to keep the relationship going, that's another thing.
We're pretty sure that God made our love for us.
I'm a female, and one of the things about the law of celibacy is that it's a kick in the butt to any female, because females are not good enough for men, these clerics. Well, I resent that totally. I am good enough for any man, including
she certainly
a priest.
is.
But now, now, you got to be past. They can't insult you anymore. I'm sure you've had... This woman has got to have reflected herself in your own pastorate, hadn't she? I mean, weren't there parishioners who were similarly disposed?
There were very few.
Very few.
Really?
Very few.
Phil, you know what a tragedy is that...
I beg your indulgence for just this one. This
right.
young man's been on his feet. I don't want
We are talking people in love here.
Yes, we are.
And this is not what Jesus and God are teaching, love for one another. It's not disgusting or filthy or anything like that.
We agree.
It's love, and I'm sorry that there are people who can't see that, past...
but obviously, these people have been brought enough pressure to the father of your child that he has chosen, apparently, not to sever his relationship with the church. So?
That's true.
Who's with me?
I was just going to make a comment to that woman who called. Yeah. It takes 2 to tango, and if a priest is involved with the lay person, it's no reason to say, I'm tired of hearing, for example, that woman up there who was talking about the priest who decided, where's his responsibility to her and the family when he went and decided to go back to the clerk? He has a woman and 2 children.
1 child.
1 child.
How would you answer that in his absence, Marianne?
In his absence, I would say, and I'm really probably at risk of saying it, as far as his responsibility, I think a lot of priests that father children the women that I know that I talk to in these situations, once they pay the bill for this child, the medical expenses, or the church provides some type of support for the child, that's a responsibility, and they're gone.
And that's how they shut them up.
They pay their price.
They pay the women, and they pay them to shut up because they don't want this scandal out there. We have a support group with 1,000 women and priests involved. Those priests also chase the women.
What money was forthcoming from the church in your own pregnancy situation?
Okay, I think the main thing I need to comment on that is the only reason I'm like this is because I could be sued. I could be sued immediately for going public. So I'm not going to sit here.
Why is that? Please give us. You signed.
Shut them up.
Did you sign something that say you would shut up?
You bet. Yes. Would you support your child? Would you want the support for your child? If I have to live in a gutter and get no income for the child, or if I have to go to public
No, I'm not criticizing whatever you did. Listen, you know, all we care about is the baby's being fed and loved, and but will the baby see his father? Will the baby, is it a boy?
See, that's what I'm protesting. The church will not allow his father to see his son, and his father loves his son. His father loves me, but the church will forbid any contact with me. And that's wrong. The Bible says to love one another, and the church says, don't you dare love your own children.
And they made her sign something that she could be sued if she so much as it shows her face or the child in terms of relationship to him. They made her sign that in order to get.
You know what's so tragic about this to me is that here I sit up here and it really bothers me because I feel all this pain. And it's so ironic that we're talking about angels on the head of a pin when indeed somehow the beauty of what the gospel of Jesus is, it gets lost.
We agree,
Mike.
It's an issue we agree, but you've got to give us permission to expose this kind of blackmail. This is terrible.
It is. My child has a right to his father, and the church will not allow it.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Yes?
I have a question for the men on the panel. When you took your vows for the priesthood, were you completely fulfilled? Did you feel that you were missing something? Did you feel the need that perhaps...
How old were you when you took your vow?
I was 24. I was 24, 1968. I didn't take any vows. I came subject to a law of the church, which I think needs to be changed.
And he went into seminary at the age of 13, and that's when they asked him to devote his life as a 13-year-old kid.
Mike,
the question for me is, the question was always the priesthood. I wanted to be a priest. Celibacy came with it. When Joan came into my life, I considered it a gift, and I consider it a gift now and a surprise, because Christianity is all about surprise and mystery and joy.
I was 21, I think. Yeah. But I think you have to distinguish celibacy as a gift of God, as a charisma, so as they say. That's not given to everyone, and I think the church cannot ask from everyone who wants to become a priest to have that gift of God with them.
How do you know if you've got the gift, if you're 21, if you're going to have the gift when you're 41?
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
You don't know.
We change careers midlife oftentimes, but priests are not allowed to make.
So why not an honorable discharge?
Over here, please.
Do you want to marry?
I take it that most of these people are with these people on the stage. How come the laws can't be changed?
How come the laws can't be changed?
Yeah, right.
Because the church...
You want to change the law?
Go ahead.
Huh?
Let's take a vote.
I think it's very easy to change.
Yeah.
You cannot change it all together.
I wondered if there are a lot more priests that are, also experiencing what you're experiencing, and if there's some kind of organized movement in any way.
There are 3,000 of us organized into a group called Corpus. We're having a national convention in Washington, D.C. on June the 17th, and you all come.
How many priests have left the church in the last 20 years?
17,000 in the United States, 100,000 worldwide.
100,000, more or less.
100,000
yes, a quarter of the total.
Priests have left the church. And you're giving the American United States number at 17,000.
17,000.
And,
so these are all Catholic priests. Why don't they become Protestants? We don't have celibacy.
Because I think one of the answers to there is an answer I received from Hans Kuhn. Why should I leave? It's my church too. It's the home of my faith.
Phil,
I can't leave
what bothers me is I think that maybe society in general should see this change, but also God. I'm sure he can understand change, don't you think?
I think so.
I think so. That's the way Jesus Christ was full of change.
Yes, sir. What is?
I'm just wondering,
If the church thinks that it's wrong for priests to be married, what do they think? What does God think about the church covering up all these kids that are being born to these people and these women?
Yeah.
Phil, these people counsel engaged couples.
Yes, they do.
And they hear confessions of people who've had affairs.
And they should be
What kind of an example are you to these people? And what kind of an example?
Wait, I'm a psychotherapist, okay? And I counsel people all of the time, and I think that because of the life I lead, I'm far more understanding and empathetic to their situations than anybody could be.
You're doing the very thing that they're not supposed to be doing. Do you counsel engaged couples to go out and have affairs?
No, I didn't counsel engaged couples to have affairs. How do you know that? Do you know that? No, I didn't tell you I had any affair.
You just told us you lived
together. And not only that, but I do not judge. Do not judge, lest you be judged.
The first couple, you said that after you were married, you lived together at the church still?
No, we don't now.
You did, though, after you were married for a while, you were still living at the church?
2 weeks before we were married, I was suspended at my request.
Marianne, did you not meet the father of your child to be when you went to him for counseling on the occasion of your first divorce?
That's true. That's true.
Now this is a very emotionally charged crucible in which a relationship is formed, huh?
Yes.
You knew that, huh? Probably before you started.
Episcopal, you understand, there's another point that needs to be made here, is does most of the Catholic population realize that the Catholic Church, the Catholic hierarchy, is allowing Episcopalian Protestant ministers to be ordained Catholic, come and serve as Catholic priests with their families, little children, grandchildren, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if a Catholic priest gets married, out he goes. Yeah. But we have people serving Catholic parishes who are Episcopalian ministers, Protestant ministers, and so on.
That's what the seminarian was talking about. He says, I'm being taught that this is against the law. The Catholic Church, people that are opposed to what's happening here, say it's horrible that you're having these relationships or that you're marrying, but they're going to open their doors to these Episcopalian ministers, ordain them Roman Catholic Church, Roman Catholic ministers, and say, welcome. Bring your kids, bring your wives, join our Catholic Church.
It is, how do you pronounce that? Canadensis, Pennsylvania, at 18325. Canadensis. Good Tidings is what at Post Office Box 283?
It's a support group for women and priests who are involved or married who seem to need support in the religious area.
They come alone?
They will call us or write usually, and our purpose is to put them in touch with spiritual guides or counselors.
So you see then as a matter of help, you see daily countless numbers of people who are involved.
We get letters, 10 maybe a week, 7 calls a week.
What is the most reliable estimate on the pervasiveness of this particular drama within the community of Catholic priests?
I only know what I've read, that 20% are heterosexually involved. 20% of the active priests today, other than those that are married. That's only what I've read, the same as everyone else has read.
Here is one of those stories. Michael Miles actually served as a priest in Montana for 5 years after his marriage to the woman he loved. And here is that story. Love is always. Yes, he finally was given the gate as an officially functioning Catholic priest on the occasion of
and so is David Rice's book, which is covering this issue worldwide, investigating it in many places in the world, not just here in the States.
Yes, sir.
Do the men on the panel think that when they entered into the priesthood, that during Vatican II, when you were ordained, perhaps the church would loosen up maybe a little bit and you could marry? Maybe that's the reason why you went into
Let me tell you why I'm here, because I care about the church, and the thing is, though, if you care enough about it, you have to be willing, as the Lord said, if you want to be first, you got to be last, and sometimes if you want to be find your life, you have to give it away, and I think that's what's happened with a lot of us.
Joseph, did you want to say something? You've been very humble. Please do.
My voice is killing.
That's all right.
What's the essential thing in the priesthood? It's service. How can you best serve the people of God, married or unmarried? It makes no difference as long as you serve. If the priest who married us was an Episcopalian priest, married a large family who had Catholics coming to him because he was married. Make it optional. There's room for celibacy, but service is the essence.
Great.
Once you realized that you were in love with each other, was it difficult to pursue that relationship, or did it follow as the next logical step? I mean, did you ask her out on a date? Was it?
Yeah, he did ask me out for dinner.
Love Is Always is the title of this book now in paperback. Michael Miles' story of his own love affair and subsequent marriage to the woman he loved. And he fell in love when he was a priest, yes.
Okay, my question is to the lady in the middle. Why didn't you use birth control to the one who had the baby?
Me?
Was it against the Catholic religion that you wouldn't use it?
I did use birth control.
Not only
not-
that, but that's
not very
against our
well.
religion too, you know.
My comment is that these are men first, then ministers. God made Adam and Eve. Eve as a companion to Adam.
Right.
Therefore, I think with someone you love, you can have even more spiritual guidance and more love.
Are you planning to raise your child as a Catholic?
Will you raise your child as a Catholic?
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.